Welcome to the 12th episode of In the Spotlight. We have with us winter sport legend and six-time Olympian. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I can now.
Okay, perfect. So, I think winter sports are fairly artificial. Yeah. How did it all start for you?
Well, if the audio is not working, just give me a sign.
Sure.
But well, for me, I mean, it was just a natural process. It didn't come. I wasn't looking to make a career in winter sports as such. I was just a regular kid growing up in the mountains, and I was born in close to this famous town called Manali, which is a winter sports destination for many people in our country. And so I was just a regular kid growing up, and during the winters, of course, we used to get a lot of snow, and often we used to be snowed in, and most of our lives would be outdoors, thinking of something to do with the snow. We used to watch TV and learn about some of these winter sports. So we used to make our own sleds, make our own skis, and that was what life was like for us growing up. And so imagine my surprise when I figured out that I can make a career out of this. And you tell any kid that you can make a career out of sleigh riding, and I don't think anybody is going to turn down that offer. So that's how it was for me.
Right. Was it always about sleigh riding? Or was there any other sports that you like to play when you were younger?
Well, I actually played everything. I'm an avid sports person, and I just love the outdoors. I love just the philosophy of leading a healthy life, and so I did mountaineering, I did skiing. In my high school, I played all the sports. I did football, I did hockey, gymnastics I was very big on gymnastics. And the list goes on. So I think early on I had a good all-round development with a good mix of sports, and then I could choose later on where I wanted to specialize in.
Awesome. I think a few comments coming in. Voice echoing. Is your phone on a solid surface?
It is on a solid surface. It's actually on a computer. Let me see.
I mean, let's pick it up. Let's pick it up. Let's ask them because I got a few.
All right.
Guys, is it better now? I cannot hear.
Well, I can hear you.
Okay, I think if no comments. Are coming in, let's go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, it seems like a bad day today for connections here.
Okay. So you went to your first Olympics. How was that experience for you?
Well, that was quite an overwhelming experience, and and I hope you get to experience it yourself soon. It's of course I was very serious about my sport, and I was very competitive as an athlete, but I never realized the magnitude of what I was doing, because athletes are so focused in the immediate goals, what is right in front of you, doing your best, negotiating the track, or in your case, preparing for the next match. And I never really saw the big picture. And I remember it really hit me only when I walked into the Olympic Stadium for the first, the grandeur of it all, and what really I had gotten myself into. I didn't realize that before then.
Yeah. After that, you went to 6 Olympics. So how has every experience been different for you, and how have you grown over the years?
Well, I think every experience is unique. Every Olympic experience is unique. The first Olympics is always special because that's the first impact with this movement, which is a lot greater than just sport. It's about fellowship. It's about camaraderie. It's about making friends all over the world, and it's about pushing yourself to new levels of excellence.
Yeah.
So I mean, so the journey was always a continuous learning process, and at every Olympics there was something new. And let's not forget that the Olympics, of course, happens once every 4 years, but it's actually every day that you're learning something new. Every day you're taking a different challenge, and you're trying to break through your own limit. So I mean, of course, the Olympic Games themselves are characterized by the host countries. So what the local customs are, what the local traditions are, that plays a big that makes a big impact. And all of a sudden in 2018, I was sitting in the cafeteria, and some other athletes from other countries come up to me and say, can I get your autograph? And I was, taken aback. I was like, why? He says, no, because you're one of the few 6-time Olympians. And that's when I thought of it, and I hadn't realized, how long time it's been. I felt old, of course, but it hits you because, again, you need that perspective to be able to understand, the big picture.
Right. So I think many Indians are not too familiar with the sport itself. So if you could just run all our viewers through what exactly Luge is, how fast you guys can go, how the whole mechanics works of the sport.
Yeah. Well, so winter sports are very, very exciting. They're very adventurous. And that's, I think, the underlying theme, what makes the Winter Olympics unique. So the Winter Olympics, just as the Summer Games, happens once every 4 years. And we alternate, in fact, every 2 years from the Summer Games and then the Winter. Luge is known as the fastest sport on ice.
Okay.
So an athlete lies down on his back on a sled, and we go down this semicircular tunnel of ice at really fast speed. The world record for luge is 152.9 kilometers an hour, and we are maneuvering this using our full body, shifting your weight from side to side, and it's all about using the natural energies of gravity and the centrifugal force. That's when we're getting really technical. But it's a very, very highly precise sport, and it's the only sport, I think, at the Olympic Games that's timed to 3 decimals of a second, so 1,000th of a second, and that much can make the difference.
Well, I think your username says something about it. Is there anything special about that?
Well, I wanted to kind of ease in the concept of this precision of the sport, and also what it takes for elite athletes to differentiate themselves from the rest. And often it is, very minute advantages that elite athletes rely on to best their opponents, because the competition internationally now is so high. Even in your sport, I'm sure, a table tennis racket can make the difference. I mean, in luge, of course, the sled makes a huge difference. But even small things like the suit, or just how far back you put your head, or how pointed you keep your toes to get the right aerodynamic position, that each of these things makes, that 100th of a second of difference. And so to explain this concept, I started this handle 100th of a sec. It was actually an idea from a friend of mine, and I thought it was a great idea. And we started off trying to explain this concept of spending years to become just 100th of a sec faster.
Yeah, for sure. Let's sort of go back to your younger days. So in 2000, you moved to Florence, of course, to study and for sport. So how was that experience for you?
Of course, sport has always been my first and lasting love. But there's more to life than sport, and you know, my family, my coaches, and everybody around me always encouraged me to cultivate other interests, and so I was very interested in social sciences. So I studied political science, um, and that was, you know, I wanted to pursue that as well. And you know, luckily this opportunity came up because the 2006 Olympics were going to be held in Italy. Florence has one of the best political science universities in the world, one of the first, in fact, after Turin. And I'm half Italian. My mother's Italian, so you know, I put one and one together, and I applied for university over there, and that helped because I could live and study close to the Luge track, and I think that helped me a lot in terms of training facilities and exposure, and I could pursue my studies as well.
For sure. And you were mentioning that you live close to a luge track, so I'm sure you've trained in various parts of the world. How different is it to train in India compared to any other place with more infrastructure?
Well, the incredible thing about India is that we have probably the best, and I can't understate this, the best natural facilities for winter sports in the world.
Okay.
It's the most majestic mountain range is the Himalayas, and we have 3,000 kilometers of Himalayan mountain range in our country. Yeah. And despite that, and as somebody who's been growing up in the Himalayas, we have visitors from all over the world, tourists, elite athletes, who you know, whose dream it is to finally come ski or do winter sports or mountaineering in the Himalayas. But despite that, we've not been able to build the kind of infrastructure required to increase our level, our technical ability, and give that kind of facilities to our people, you know, to our youth. And that is really sad, because I think winter sport is a huge development opportunity, not just sports opportunity, not just a way for young athletes to realize their dreams, but to provide livelihood for millions of people who are living in this belt. So, you know, it might be a cultural thing, but as we've seen, all the other sports in India have been developing rapidly over the past few years. And I do hope that winter sports follows suit shortly.
For sure. We're going to talk about the development of the sport. But I was going to ask you, I just posted that video of you training on the road on my story, and a lot of people are really interested about that. Were you not scared, or what was going through your mind when you did that?
Well, I must say, so we started a similar activity when we were kids. Okay, it was something that we used to do at low speed with homemade sleds. But then once I got this international exposure to the kind of technology and equipment, I said, why not modify the local sleds and make something high tech and see what we can do? And of course, by that time, I was confident enough in my abilities to maneuver the sled down this road. It's not something I recommend people do without guidance, right? So it took a lot of planning, but it was also a way to raise awareness about the lack of infrastructure that we have over here, and to the extremes that we have to go to improvise. And of course, you know, the world famous Indian concept of jugaad comes in over here. So, you know, we made some jugaad for our own training purposes, and the result was street luge, and it was great because I was able to spread the message of the sport to so many people, and I was able to, in fact, start a whole movement of young sliders who came up learning from the street luge and then transitioned to become the junior national team and so on. So definitely using the facilities at our disposal is one important way to go about developing this.
And is street luge something you kept using as a training method, or was it just sort of a few times here and there?
Well, a little bit of both. I could not train the technical ability for luge, but there are certain things that you can, the balance, the anticipation of the curves, the reaction time, the speed, and also the nerves, because that is extremely important in our sport. If you're scared of something, and if your body tenses up, then the sled doesn't react the way it's supposed to. So although you can't draw perfect parallels between these two disciplines, let's say, but it definitely helped me, and it helped me to stay motivated, and to know that there's something I can do in my backyard to alternate the physical training schedule, because our training is divided into building your body, your muscles, getting ready to conditioning yourself, and the technical part, which is riding and learning how to negotiate the various curves on the track.
Yeah.
And that is something similar to Formula One, actually, because you're going so fast, you don't have time to think about each particular curve as you're doing it. It needs to be ingrained in your muscle memory, in your psyche, and your reaction has to come automatically. So that's why it's important to have training on the specific venues that you race on.
For sure, and I was actually just going to get to this. Of course, at these high speeds, you need to have an incredible amount of muscle memory. But how do you sort of change your training tracks? Or do you always train on one track, and does that not get repetitive? Or how does that work?
Well, there are certain things that are universal. Okay, there's certain things about how you have to steer the sled, how you have to balance the sled, make sure it doesn't skid out of control. There are certain things that are universal, but once you know the basics, these are the basics, right? Once you know the basics, you have to prepare yourself to negotiate a particular set of curves that make up track A or track B or track C. And the only way to do that is through practice. And so you have to go and travel to that track. And we have a lot of theoretical classes also, which we call curve theory, which you have to analyze the curve, study the G-forces that can be active on you as an athlete while you're going through this curve. What is the best way to negotiate it? What is the shortest way to negotiate it? And so you put all this theory together, and then you put it in practice during your training. And training is also quite strenuous, because we reach high levels of G-force. If you make a mistake, you can even cross 10 Gs, which is like a stack of bricks dropping on your body. So we also use visualization and mental training a lot.
Right.
And that's amazing. And I think it's something that anyone can use in any field, just to visualize what your movements should be. You put yourself in one situation, and you visualize yourself how you're going to win this match, or how are you going to pass this interview, or how are you going to do this test. And it prepares yourself psychologically. And you can do very interesting simulations. Like for me, suppose there was a track where I felt I couldn't react fast enough because the speed is too high. In my visualization, I would fast forward it to the extent that when I'm actually doing it, it seems slower than what I'm used to. So you can condition your mind in all these various ways, and I think it's something that is useful for everybody.
For sure. So we're going to get to the physical and mental aspects of it, and also an interesting question about the infrastructure for winter athletes in India. But right now, we're just going to go through a quick rapid fire. So what is your most memorable Olympics?
Well, the first Olympics, Nagano, 1998.
Okay. India or Italy?
India.
Himachal or Kerala?
A bit of both. Mountains and the seaside. Need a bit of both.
Okay. If not for Luge, what do you think you would be doing today?
Martial arts.
Martial arts. Okay.
I'm an avid Kalaripayat, enthusiast, and I trained for many years.
Nice.
And I always, wanted to be like, like Jet Li or Bruce Lee, or, one of those guys.
Awesome. What's your favorite holiday destination? It could be somewhere you haven't been.
Well, it's been any beach destination, because the rest of my life I was chasing sub-zero temperatures, and I always wanted to go to the tropics.
Okay. What is the secret behind your long hair?
Long hair. That's 10 years of military school where I had to keep my hair really short. I refused to cut it after that.
And who is your role model or inspiration growing up?
Well, my role models, I've got a number of role models, but I think Mahatma Gandhi was a huge, he made a huge impact on my life, and I always wanted to make a mark in whatever I do, no matter how insignificant your life is. It's important that you do the things that you're supposed to be doing. So that's been a huge motivation for me.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm just going to ask you last few of the rapid fire or the fun section. So what would you do if you woke up as the following people? The first one is Mickey Mouse.
Mickey Mouse. Well, try to get away with anything, I guess. Feel free.
And what would you do if you woke up as Donald Trump?
As Donald Trump? Whew. Well, I wouldn't want to wake up as Donald Trump, but well, I think if I had that power, I would try to ban wars all over the world.
Okay, or
just shut down all the armies.
Or maybe you just go back to sleep.
Yeah.
Okay, so now back to the regular question. So you were mentioning the mental aspect of it, and what are the other things that you do to mentally prepare for a race other than visualization?
Well, the most important thing is training, because nothing really happens on the race day. The race or the test or whatever your exam or whatever event is coming up, it will just show your preparation for it. So it's very important that you diligently prepare for it. And many times you do race simulation during training, so you get yourself in the mindset that you are in the race, so that you can make use of that extra josh or extra aggressivity that you can get during that day, and you don't get adversely affected by it.
And you were mentioning about the racetrack. So how many days or weeks before an event can you get to the racetrack, or would you at least get the map of it?
Well, I've been to all the tracks in the world by now, so it's just a matter of going back to that track and refreshing that memory. So what we call in the pre-season, we do a tour of all the tracks where the races are supposed to happen, and we get as many runs as possible on that track. And then once the race season starts, the whole world, or as we say, the whole circus is in town, and you don't have that much time to train. And so all we're doing is going for the official training, which is normally 6 to 10 runs in the week. And during the rest of the week, you're trying to learn from your competition. You're trying to do your sled preparation, the technical part of it, and of course your visualization.
Okay. And what are some of the most important physical aspects in terms of the body for luge?
Well, dealing with the G-force, and it takes a toll on your neck, so you need to train your neck a lot. But luge is, let's say, it's an all-round sport. In the start, you use, you push with your legs, you pull with your arms, you use the elastic motion of your back. So you try to analyze it, biomechanically, and try to have the most efficient movements, and try to make use of all the major muscle groups in your body. So I would say it's a little bit of everything, but the neck definitely can save your life. So it's one of the focus areas.
Okay, now we're sort of going to go on to more of the general questions. If
Mm-hmm.
if you're to give advice to sports people or anyone else on sort of balancing how you have sporting pressures as well as non-sporting pressures that can be caused in your life, how do you balance those?
Well, I think it is, it's important to look at life from a bigger picture point of view. Okay. I mean, I do sports. I am a sports person, definitely, but that's not all I am, right? So it's important to use sport also to as we say, healthy mind and a healthy body. So you're using your sport to make sure that your brain is working in a certain way. When you get to when you travel far for competitions and training, you have an opportunity to learn a new culture. You have an opportunity to make new friends and learn of a different point of view of the world. So I think all these things are extremely important, and it keeps it interesting, because otherwise, if you're just cultivating one interest, it's likely that you might get bored, at a certain point. So, and also one extremely important thing for an athlete is to understand that a sport career doesn't last forever. It mainly lasts when you're young and you're fit, and your body can handle those physical challenges, right? Beyond that, there's a whole transition aspect which many athletes have a really hard time with. So it's always good to cultivate, a series of interests, and so that when that time comes, it's easier for you to make that change. Whether it is, you become a coach from an athlete, or you become an official, or you get into corporate life, or whatever it may be. So you use the power of sport, use the values that you learn for sport, but apply them across the board. And I think that's something that many people don't pay enough attention to, and they should.
Right. How do you think winter sports has evolved since your early days in India?
Well, in two ways. Okay, in some ways it's become worse, because when I started, there used to be a lot more athletes, and many of them have got disillusioned over the years because of lack of proper sports administration, and so people who would have become really good athletes have gone into other fields like tourism, or using their sports skills for their livelihood. However, at the same time, I've seen a marked increase in awareness in India about winter sports. So people wanting to try it, companies wanting to fund and support athletes. So it's been a roller coaster ride, but still, and I say this with some sadness, that still, despite having competed in 6 Olympics, having won 10 medals at the Asian level, still the Luge Federation of India is not recognized by the ministry, and not a single winter sports federation is recognized by the ministry, which is really sad, and I think that needs to change immediately.
For sure. I completely agree with you. And the next thing I was actually going to ask you is, what do you think that they should do to help Indian winter sports in the years to come?
Well, I think the same thing that we should do for all sports, that is involve athletes in the decision-making process, involve athletes in the administration, understand how we are going to put in long-term mechanisms in place. Number one, to have a wide base of development athletes, and number two, to have an elite program in which we can use that wide talent pool to create a number of potential champions. And it's not rocket science. In fact, it's very easy. It's replicable across sports. And so here's a real opportunity What I think is needed is leadership to make these decisions and to make new choices in something that has never been done before. So just as we have taken the leap from cricket to other sports, now we should take the leap to winter sports and to adventure sports as well.
Amazing. There's a quick question actually. What is the youngest age category for Luge in India or even worldwide?
Well, if you want to start the sport, you can start from as young as 4 years old.
4, right?
And in fact, even younger than that, because you probably don't start off doing luge, but you start off training certain kind of physical traits like speed, for example. The first window for speed training is between 3 and 4 years old. The same for balance. You have a first window for training your balance and agility around 5. Of course, depending from person to person. So I don't think we should look at it as sport specific, but young kids should be encouraged to do a whole range of activities, sports activities, physical activities, creative activities, and then later you understand what the aptitudes are, what the interests are, and then you let those decisions come organically and naturally. But it's never early enough. You can start from the get-go.
And what is the youngest age group to compete in at certain events?
We at the Olympics, they don't let you in if you're below 16. So I was the youngest ever at the Olympics for luge. We have a whole junior circuit, which unfortunately I never took part in, but but you have under 16s over there as well, and you have under 14s as well.
Okay.
So I know there are certain countries that have children's races. Germany is big on that. It's coming up in the US as well, which they have 11, 12-year-old kids racing. But on the international level, it's there's just the junior circuit and the senior circuit. One is under 20 and one is open.
Okay. And you're also the president of the Olympian Association of India. And what is the vision of that, and what are you trying to do over there?
Well, the Olympian Association of India is started, as to create solidarity amongst people who have shared a similar life story and share so many similar values of being associated with the Olympic movement, and we want to safeguard Olympians throughout their lives, because many a times we only hear about sports persons, about Olympians when you're doing well, when you're winning medals. You don't hear what goes on behind the scenes. And most definitely, you don't hear about them once they retire from active sport. But these are people who have given so much to the country, who have cultivated such an incredible value system that can be used well beyond sport, and they need an organization of peers to support them and continue to make sure that they are this tremendous. This tremendous baggage of experience and the value system that they bring is still used for the benefit of society. So, Olympian Association of India wants to serve Olympians and wants to serve society through Olympians.
Amazing. And we actually have another Olympian here who connected us. So I just want to thank Kamlesh sir for that. And as he said, we're all extremely proud of your achievements. And just into the last question of the live. I'm not too sure whether you still want to do martial arts after luge, but what do you think your plans are after luge, and maybe how do you aim to help winter sports in India?
First of all, I'd also like to shout out for Kamlesh. Thank you so much for all your efforts in table tennis and in the Olympian Association as well. It's great to work with you, and look forward to doing many great things together. So my plans are also very tied into the athletes movement. I'm part of the Athletes Commission of the Indian Olympic Association. Of course, I'm founding president of the Olympians Association of India, and we want to involve athletes in the development and in the growth story of sports. And of course, being a winter sports athlete and being born and brought up in the Himalayas, I want to see sports sports for development initiatives coming up, and I want to see the hill states in India, making use of this tremendous power of sports to give to develop the hilly regions and to give many more opportunities to the youth living in these regions. So my dream would be, of course, to work in these fields and to be associated with the sports movement in general.
I think India needs a lot more athletes like you and Olympians who will help benefit Indian sport. And we have this tradition.
As it does need a lot more young and enthusiastic and energetic athletes like you. And I thought we were going to speak more about your career, but I take this opportunity to wish you all the best and keep following your dream. And there are hard times, there are tough times, but sports builds character, and that's what's going to come through in the end.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your wishes. And we have this tradition on my live series where the previous speaker volleys a question to the next speaker. So if you had the chance to ask one of India's finest boxers ever, Vijayendra Singh, a question, what would it be?
Well, I've so since I'm into martial arts, okay, and I practiced Kalaripayattu for many years. My Guruji, who was also my grandfather, used to say the best way to fight is intimidation, right? So how do you intimidate your opponent and make him give up the fight even before you get in? So this is a question for Vijayendra.
Okay, I'll surely ask him that. I just want to thank obviously you for coming on the live, even though there were technical glitches, but also all the viewers for staying on. I think we had a lot of viewers today for this live. So just thank you to everyone for being patient and being there. And of course, thank you so much for agreeing to do this and spreading such inspirational words for all of us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for doing this. All the best for the future initiatives. And yes, thank you to all the viewers, for all this love and support. And apologies for the technical glitches earlier on.
No, it's not
still learning about this new platform.
Yeah, no, it's in no one's hands. But just thank you so much for joining the live.
All right, all the best.
Thank you. Take care. Stay safe.